Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with our first semi-finalist, the 9-time GSL champion, the Terran Red, the man, the myth, the Maru. Facing off against the greatest rival for over a decade of his career, the Zerg in blue. We have Rogue in a best-of-7 Terran versus Zerg semi-finals to Season 1 of the 2026 Revival Star League. And before we get started, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button, maybe even subscribing. Jimmy, what are we at? 1,827 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what I do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As the first Reaper comes in, pokes at a couple drones, Queen pops out a little bit late, and the drones themselves get in the way, and he'll get away with, well, not murder, just about as close as he could possibly get. And Maru, you already know. There are only 3 things in life, guaranteed. Make that 4. Death, taxes, me begging for likes and subscribes, and Maru's third command center. Not particularly greedy here on Celestial Enclave, with the Enclave not just being a starry idea in the sky, but instead a pocket base that both sides can take relatively easily, though we already saw the workers-only path being utilized. The back base, the budget base, only has 5 mineral patches and a single gas geyser, but it's almost impossible to attack directly early, though obviously there are plenty of methods as time goes on. And I'm sure both these players more than happy to utilize a less than standard set of strategies, especially Rogue, who kind of twists the game into whatever shape he deems is going to make Maru most upset. And up until earlier this year, Rogue had been using the Maru portrait ever since he defeated him notoriously in GSL like 4 years ago. When Maru was so heavily favored, everybody was literally betting against him. But Rogue has another opportunity here in pretty much the equivalent, the RSL. The Queens. Stop right. Well, hey, you know, you really shouldn't have gone on that diet, Susan. Not now, Brenda. I don't... 3 drones incinerated, char-broiled by the very first Hellions. Citizens arrest, though, on the second one. And a curious exchange as Maru correctly guessing, not really guessing, he scouted with that first SCV, but realizing there probably wouldn't be Zergling speed, barely any Zerglings at all. The Queens did a pretty good job of boxing out, but 3 Hellions get through, incinerate 3 drones, and was it worth it? Beautiful Brenda bounce and knocks both Queens out of the way. Gets another... Oh, well. Yeah, I get it. Reaper gets taken out. And now, it's macro time. We've gotten rid of the cheese, and now the macro roadie will be the main entree. Double upgrades for Maru. Double engineering bay. A full minute before Rogue's evolution chambers are even going to complete. And does he have a lair? No. So just spamming the drones, every single larva going into him, adding a couple more queens. But the Overlord got in. It spotted, I believe, the second Rex, which... Is that a 4th command center, right? Of course. On this most defensive of maps, both players embracing that much more macro-oriented strategy. That early run by probably the extent of the aggression. Maru even building an armory as part of the wall off. Not that that's going to become as a shock to any Zergling coming in, but just trying to use every bit of his infrastructure efficiently. And Rogue doing the same. All right, he's got 4 hatcheries. He's had 69 drones, which is a very nice start for 5.5 minutes in. And he's not stopping there. We got Burrow on the way. Zergling speed. I imagine Baneling speed the moment the lair and the Baneling nest both finish. 72 drones, now getting a few sets of Zerglings. He did not see the 4th command center. He doesn't know exactly when Maru's looking to move out, but those first 2 medevacs are already above the field, and 16 Marines with 1-1 in stim are an existential threat. Even 15 Marines. All right, I'm not going to lower the assessment any more than that, but 15 Marines with 1-1 in stim against, well, whatever queens he can put together. He's putting the sporimeter together, the sporcher, the spores. All right, he's just putting spores around. The medevacs will be mildly inconvenienced by the idea, and because of the worker-only path, that you can't really mine through. There's no easy way for Maru to take out those spores without siege tanks later on. I guess he could just drop in, but takes out one Overlord, trades away a few Zerglings, but overall the creep spread, the Lings and the Banes, Rogue not underestimating the danger that just a couple medevacs could pose, and has plenty to deal with them directly. But as time goes on, Maru's supply will continue to grow. He's going to grab the 4th base on the low ground, a much more lucrative one. Just 2 Marines taken out so far as the medevacs continue to boost across the map. The creep continues to metastasize in pretty much every direction. The infestation pit is nearly completed, and the tech tree continues to grow, as both players with plenty of economy and barely any expenditure on the army itself. Combat shield's still not done, making it more and more difficult for the Marines to find much success. And the Queens... Never using Apple Maps again, Brendan. You said that last time, and here we are. You remember last time? This brings up some curious points. Sorry, I blacked out for... Meanwhile, Maru adding a whole lot of production. 2nd factory. 3 more tech labs on his barracks? How many tech... He has 4 tech lab barracks. Mass Marauder, which obviously you can't spell without Maru. Target fires the Banelings, jams the Marines into the corner. And while Rogue might put Maru in the corner, that's where Terrans thrive, as they're optimized for cowardice. Hive is already halfway done, just 8 minutes in. Not particularly fast, but definitely not slow. Just like those Banelings rolling into the mineral line and making sure the majority of the SCVs are mildly uncomfortable. He could heal or repair. He just chooses not to. Health insurance policies aren't what they once were. Baneling mines scattered throughout. And does he pop it? Give it to me. Yeah. Well. Okay, it was more than 1 Marine. We'll see it in a second. 13 Marines, you know? Well, he got a couple there. The Baneling mines and Overlords looking at the Marines. Marines looking at the Overlords. Only one of them has guns, so quickly realizing who has the upper end of that engagement, somewhat ironically. 7 Dropper Lords on the way. The Ultraless Cavern. Adrenal Glands. 2-2. He can't grow a kitchen sink, but if he could. Maru, on the other hand, might be able to find a way to build it. He's already got 3-3 started, though Rogue is caught up quite quickly on the upgrades. Impressive because the upgrades take the same amount of time for the same tier on either side. Baneling mine scouted out, but the fact he hit even 1 Baneling mine has now put the fear in his heart. And more importantly, required the scans. The Dropper Lord, it's a fake! He doesn't know there's nothing in those Dropper Lords. He's baiting the entire army out of position. Rogue! Oh, and Maru completely fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. And now the supply is going to be sinking drastically. The Widow Mines could get huge hits on the Banelings, just bashes through. Every SCV is slaughtered on the low ground, and a whole lot of the Marines and Marauders on the high. He even takes out a factory, tears down the wall, all the supply depots, and Rogue with the fake drop. Now, there's no way for Maru to know that there was nothing in those Overlords. And now, the bait worked perfectly. It's not cheap. It's not free. Each Dropper Lord costing $25 on top of the cost of the Overlord itself. But Rogue finding a new and, not really new, but a novel way to use Overlords in an effective late-game fashion. Not just the Mass Overseer Infinite Changeling strategy, but the Dropper Lords now added to the arsenal and working perfectly. Maru, the barricade here, the rocks, halfway. You know, this is probably just helping out Maru. Probably wanted to do this in the first place, but he wants to do it on his terms. And Rogue so far has managed to take the initiative, which is something very hard to do at this stage in Terran versus Zerg. But Rogue with a supply lead, he's got 84 drones. He has half the map. That's not always enough against Terran. But the Ghost Academy is only halfway done. 3-3 upgrades are finishing up, but Rogue has his on the way as well. He's barely lost, and he's got burrowed Zerglings, the leftover. Honestly, in my opinion, more useful than burrowed Banes. Burrowed Banes, just a constant drag on your attention. Rarely do they get the sort of hits that Scarlet versus Bomber literally 12 years ago were added to the highlight reel. But burrowed Zerglings in random locations cost nothing. Well, effectively nothing. You're not nothing. I'd say it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And can get invaluable information. The medevac taken out of the sky. A Spire is on the way. Ultralisk in production. And so far, Rogue in the driver's seat. And willing to crash both of their cars and, well, hopefully preside over the wreckage. And with this sort of economy, more banelings coming in. Maru, he did not take critical damage, but he has to reconsider what sort of tactics he wants to use in this. Oh, the parasitic bombs. He drops out another set of bio. The dregs. Yeah. Meanwhile, the single Zergling. There's only 4 orbital commands. He definitely needs more orbitals if he wants to... Oh, both sides. The hatchery goes down more to the overconsumption of the Vipers. Broodlings and Zerglings will clean this up. More Zerglings to the top right side, but a Venn diagram of freedom. The Liberator setting up, and now Maru has taken the southern line. The entirety. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bases. I didn't have to count it out. I did it for dramatic effect. I totally knew that was 5 bases. But here we are. There's also a couple bases I don't think I've ever seen taken, like in a real game, down the center. It feels like they're so clearly in the middle of everything, players just kind of gloss over it with their eyes. In the meantime, though, Rogue managed to realize there's a rich Vespine base down the center as well, which doesn't have more gas, but you can mine it incredibly quickly. 3-3 now done, and there will be no further upgrades. +3 is where we max out. Maru continuing to try to put pressure on. 4 more command centers on the way, but actually getting supply blocked from losing depots and maybe a command center here or there. Once 4 more command centers finish, I don't think it'll be supply blocked until the game ends one way or another. And it begins. The Oversight Committee is coming together. He's making overseers at his main base, which tells a story. It's not something he's desperately building, but instead is part of that late game strategy that only Rogue really seems to be able or willing to utilize. Maru also a master of the late game, but so far unable to really put it to use. Another medevac is knocked out of the sky. The Corruptors are revealed. The Overseers starting to grow in number, and Maru is fully retreated into his shell. Rogue is now mining from like 8 different bases. He has 9 hatcheries. Continuing to add more. The creep spread is about 2/3 of the map. I wish we had a counter of the exact... I mean, just use your eyes. Okay? Well, unless... Well, shout out to my blind view. As always, I kind of have to, but... The Marauders. Around the corner, Vipers, a blinding cloud on a single siege tank. Widow Mines slam in. More great blinding clouds this time around, and the Widow Mines are taken out by the Banelings. They explode right above themselves. The Corruptors will knock down the Liberators and push away the command center. There's not enough ghosts to really help out here. The Zerglings interrupting a lot of the target fire. He might be able to take a couple ultras around the corner. And Rogue doesn't have such a massive bank that he can just do a hostile economic takeover of this game. He does have... We do no damage, Brenda. That's because for some reason we have ranged attack upgrades. Yeah. Can't we just melee them? No, it doesn't work like that. And Rogue found the base! The very last base. In fact, he was expanding to Maru's side of the map before even realizing. But he finds the center base, and we'll see how long it lasts as Maru's setting his sights on it. But Rogue doesn't... His army is worth 6,700, 2,800, which is over almost double the minerals that Rogue has in the bank. Maru is also nearly maxed out and starting to bank up. But if he can deny those center bases, which is not easy to do, but is certainly not impossible, well, then we get into that extreme supreme late game scenario. Another planetary, and Maru a little slow. That means the planetary will finish just in time for the Zerglings to rip it apart before it can retreat. The Zerglings with a free kill in the bottom right corner. And Maru is maxed out, but how does he partition his units? He still has 73 SCVs, which is not necessarily a good thing. As to play this sort of style, you sometimes need as few as possible. That number is obviously fluid. Meanwhile, the Ultras just crashing through. The battering ram bludgeoning the siege tanks. But the ghosts, a bit more of a precise methodology of firing a massive bullet that I assume just causes ultras to explode from the inside out. Quite gruesome, but otherwise explain why it takes only 5 shots. Is it 4? I think it's 5. Close enough. Speaking of 5 more ultras on the way. Rogue making his Spire great again, and a +2 flyer attack upgrade as well. The center base, a point of contention, is Maru realizing he needs to do something here. Very notably, no Infestors. Only a few Vipers, which he's used quite well. Only lost 1. Inspired probably by the greatest Zerg of them all, the Finisher, against Maru not too long ago. That match played just a couple weeks before this one. Though we mess with the timelines a bit when we're doing it here. Meanwhile, Blinding Cloud. Widowmine hits a Viper, but Blinding Cloud's forced the bio to spread. And that's not the butter you want to see right in front of your base. It's enough. Ultra's taking some more hits. The Ghost will cloak. Try to line up some shots, get some extra vision with the Widowmine, but 16 more SCVs dead, and honestly, Maru, even though he has a nuclear missile on the way, I don't know how much he wants to replace very many more of these SCVs. He's got 6 in production at once, but maybe 60 or so? As his best defense now is the defense. It's no longer offense, as Rogue has grabbed so much of the map. Now, again, very notably, he does not have a massive bank. It's under 1,000 with 1,200 gas. His army, 10 Ultralists, 38 Banes. Maru's army is of similar cost, eating a lot of the Widowmine hits with the Overseers, which can handle 1 or 2, but meanwhile, the Zerglings trying to take out the Planetary at the front. The Ghost count is so damn high, and they don't care about the Blinding Cloud. The Snipes can still line up those shots. He cloaks the Banelings, an acidic shield, zoning out for the Ultras. But the Ghosts, they turn the corner. They line up the shots. You know, Rogue, what have you done? Uh-oh. Rogue lost that fight. Over the last 4.5 minutes, they've been fighting that whole time. 4.5 minutes, 16,000 resources and 4,600 gas destroyed by Maru. 16 Ultras in the mix there. 11,000 minerals and 4,000. Oh no! Oh, he noticed, but it was a little late. A couple Queens get obliterated in nuclear hellfire. Some drones, but averts disaster by just a couple seconds. But the nuke landing on anything is really something that Rogue can't afford at this stage. He seems to be a conscientious objector to the Infestor strategy. But is there any other option? There's a dozen ghosts, and there's only one Ghostbuster. The Banelings are good, but Maru is too well set up in these fights. And Rogue does not have the what the fuck? "17 swarm hosts in production." Well, Maru unleashes a solar flare in order to scan for literally everything, probably suspecting Infestors. You know what I think he doesn't expect? 17 swarm hosts! Sir Richard and his band of swarm host brethren. He's got a night aside. Well, Rogue, with another original late game strategy. So swarm hosts aren't usually used because a singular, like a mediocre fight, doesn't even take a good one, but a mediocre fight, and then a solid third of your army supply is completely useless. It is also a bio army of ghosts, can deal with the Locust quite well. It still doesn't really solve the ghost problem. It just pushes it down the line sometimes. As Locusts are still light units, much unlike your mother, and Ghosts are able to do extra damage to them just in their auto-attack mode. So, without Infestors, the problem of Ghosts still remains. But of course, Swarm Hosts can eventually, when left unchecked. But it looks like he's checking him. He's definitely checking. And, there's just a few Locusts charged up, a couple Swarm Hosts caught. And remember, he didn't even have the ranged attack upgrades, as the Queens learned the hardest possible way. +2 ranged attack is about to complete, but the Locusts... Rogue, just... This is a no Infestor challenge. And now, Infestors are not the be-all, end-all. Serral certainly makes them look an order of magnitude better than... Maybe not they are, but they realistically can be for anyone not named Serral. Another wave comes out. Zerglings through a Nidus in the main. Well, it appears Maru is kind of shell-shocked right now, as he had the army to get aggressive when the Swarm Host came out. But he's just playing defensive. Because who would go Swarm Host when they're flat broke? This isn't the heart of the Swarm. They are not the endless siege units they once were. They're hit-and-run skirmish units who grow their babies to die after about 15 seconds. But they do a lot of damage in those angry 15 seconds. Well, the Vipers do have energy right up until the EMPs hit them. Point blank. Another wave of Locusts to the north, but that leaves the army woefully under-equipped to deal with this to the south. The command center will lift, and at this point I think planetaries are more of a liability. The fact that Maru is languishing at 165 supply, I have never... Maybe it was Rogue. I think maybe Rogue did this some months ago, but if there's some really crazy strategy that seemed like it was really good, but no one ever does, it's probably Rogue. When it comes to Zerg, since Dark... Come back to us, Dark. Queens versus Siege Tank. Well, press F to pay respects. Another planetary attempted. Deja vu. We've just lifted this base before. Locust will... They get a tank. The returns are diminishing. But again, the Swarm Hosts, they cost nothing but time. And so far, it's kind of working. Rogue has lost 51,000 to 36,000 resources. Obviously, well, those Ultras certainly telling a tale. He's had the income lead, but Maru just dropped a stable of mules at the center base, which is becoming the pivotal... Pivotal? Yeah. I have the bet. Jimmy, edit that out. The focal point, we'll go with that, of this entire game. And again, just wait for the planetary. The planetary will complete, and this time it can't run away. And that means he might be able to kill it. Or he can defend it. Either way, most of the army is here. And the Locusts, they do nothing! 42 Locusts. He got 2 Marauders, a Marine, and an SCV. Maru actually killed 2 of his own SCVs, technically. Oh, they're burrowed Zerglings. I saw blue on the minimap. They blended in so well, I could not see them. Not that that's how any of the burrow works. More spines on the way. And it feels like if Rogue had done this while he still had money instead of... Oh, no, the Overseer! No! There goes! Oh! It's a disaster for Rogue! He's been grinding back. He's completely shifted his army. And it's been going rather well. But he just lost the Vipers, lost half a dozen Swarm Hosts. The Planetary, the Ghost, will actually plink away the Locusts. Now, the Ultras are carving away the base from the inside out, finding more success than they have pretty much anywhere on the field. Meanwhile, Maru hitting the right side, the Banelings will crash in. And it looked very dramatic and ended up being not nearly enough. And look at the gas. It's quite a shortage lately, but especially for Rogue. And without gas, all he has are Zerglings. And Queens, I guess. But he's mined out of most of the bases. Another wave of Locusts. A single big job, huh? A single SCV repairing that planetary. Good spread on the Locusts. Maru is still at 170 supply. He still hasn't dealt with the main brunt of this. It looks like Rogue will finally take out this planetary. And Maru's under 50 SCVs. But the 9 o'clock base will now receive another stimulus check of mules. And the Swarm Hosts The swarm hosts are making up at least 1/3 of the army supply. Multiple liberators. The ghosts will be able to retreat. The zerglings thinning them out. No infestors. Again, the defining characteristic of all this. Forced all the way back. That single ultralisk. But he lines up the shots and knocks out the ultra. The other one, oh, well, liberators. There's still a spire somewhere. Technically there's a greater spire, but instead of brood lords, he chose swarm hosts, which is better for entertainment value, but another wave is launched. A spore crawler to help with detection. He's microing locusts so they can spend their short lives more productively. The planetary, when encircled by the locusts, is destroyed in like a second and a half. And Maru? Well, this is... Huh. So... Huh. The ghost count... Rogue has managed to kill 11 ghosts. He's still lost 15,000 more resources. How much has he mined? He's mined 11,000 more minerals, 400 less gas. The other center base is taken. And the ghosts just waving their snipes over everything. The rapid fire to whatever he can hit. 0 infestors either in production. Well, it's not like he has the gas. The locusts, if you don't micro them, they just drop out on whatever is closest. So you have to be very careful with that. He actually killing a lot of the ghosts with the locusts. The banelings rolling through. Ghosts forced to cloak, but the overseer's overhead, as you might expect. But through all the fire and fury, Rogue is almost completely out of money. The swarm hosts have continued to find progress, but not enough. Wow. And he just taps it out with 19 swarm hosts on the field and 0 hope of ever breaking that army. Rogue breaking out a completely novel strategy, but I think it was too little and too late. Even though it was 10 minutes before the end of the game, he did it after losing everything. If he had transitioned into swarm hosts before losing all of his ultras the first time, maybe. But Maru persevered. He survived the onslaught. Rogue on a no infestor challenge, which, oh, I hope we see it with more than nothing in the bank. Because if he can use the swarm hosts in a more stiff arm sort of position, as opposed to a desperation move almost. Feel like there was a moment when Rogue looked at his money. He's like, I got like 1,000, 2,000. Swarm hosts, I guess. Well, and it almost worked. It both did better and worse than I expected, which there's really no expectations with swarm hosts because I can count the number of times I've seen them in such magnitude, especially in Zerg versus Terran. They're marginally more common in Zerg versus Protoss, especially against like the ground-based armies. Like instead of 2% of games, it's like 4%, so twice as common. Statistics are fun, aren't they? At least 100% of me says so. But and I meant to mention it in game number 1, just a complete segue. But if you're watching this in the first couple days, well, this weekend is Gamers for Giving 2026. You'll find more info in the description, but I meant to tie it in with the videos. It's a live stream as well, but it's to support equipment, gaming equipment for kids and children's hospitals. We've been doing it since 2014, I want to say. And I started out as one of the first streamers for the event, and I'm happy to say I'm now one of several hundred. So, am I taking all the credit? No. Am I going to take some credit? At least a little. And are we still looking for support? And if you want to find more information, we will have this year's campaign in the description and in the pinned comment. Jimmy, I meant to have it for our last video, which did very well, Cyril versus Maru, if you saw it, but that's what I'm talking about. And there's a whole setup of programs because, you know, there are two terrible things happen. Maybe don't phrase it like that, but being a child and being in the hospital, both definitely not ideal. As a former child myself, and making their day a little bit better, I think is a worthy goal. And we've done a lot of that. I think raised over $250,000 over the last 10 years, but any fraction, if you got the means and motivation. But I will be live streaming twitch.tv/wintergaming or youtube.com/wintergamingtv. If you haven't checked it out, during the evenings of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, April 10th, 11th, 12th. And I think you can donate at any time, but it's the big event weekend, so that's like the whole deal. It is a registered charity in the U.S. I think many other countries recognize it. It is global now. And we've got some special goals, all right? You hate the beard? We might shave it off. You love the beard? We might dye it blue or something. Actually, I think they have 3 colors. Blue, red, and white. Like Gandalf style. We'll go for that. Might land on that. We'll see. I'm sure my wife will have an opinion. We may disregard it for the right price. No, either way. Make sure to check it out. And even if you can't watch live, you can... What was that, Maru? Maru, stop doing something I need to talk about while I'm doing the spiel here. Lost his Reaper. So, unlike Maru, we're going to make things better, not worse. Just loses the Reaper? Okay. I guess it was a scout. That was a very quick speed. But yeah. Oh, but the main actionable point is you can just go check out. It goes directly to the charity, the registered charity. You can look them up. They actually do an incredible job of having a super high percentage despite being a relatively low amount. Their overhead costs are really low for how relatively small they are. So it doesn't go to me to pass on. You can use Patreon if you'd like something like that, but it is direct to the charity. Got it. Pinned comment. Here we are. Missing you today. If that rings a bell, well, just move right past it. It's one of our new community maps from one of the previous Team Liquid map contests. I think it's been submitted to the newest one, as we're using half and half on most tournaments, the old and the potential new maps. Team Liquid. Another thing, Team Liquid map contest in April. We're not going into that spiel now. We've already had 1 spiel per game. 1 SPM. PG. But aside from the Reaper, a drone, a Zergling, and an Overlord, overall, the huge. 3 bases, lair on the way, Hellions, and a Banshee. Maru actually going for Banshee this time around as opposed to the Medivacs right off the bat. It is a more open map, as you don't have a pocket base to just land on in the very back corner. And this time around, Rogue does have the threat of Zergling speed and potentially counterattacking as well. So if you go straight for Marines, you kind of skip the Hellion Banshee phase. That does actually open you up to a counterattack. The threat of a Banshee existing on most maps that don't have like a ramp to the natural especially. A direct attack is a real and present threat. Whereas, like Celestial Enclave, you can kind of get away with most things. And Mutas? Aspire. Maru, with 3 racks done. 4 and 5 just now finishing. Double upgrades. So we will have a significant amount of Marines and Marine production. But by the time the Mutalisks are in production, he'll be moving out with his first Medivacs. Which, the best defense against Mutalisks is a good offense. As if you can keep them tied up at home, most of their strength is in forcing you back to defend your mineral lines, defend your reinforcements. If you can keep them from doing that, or forcing that, it becomes harder and harder for the Zerg to get real damage done. But Rogue is at 74 drones, and Maru is just now moving out to put on some pressure. He's banked up enough for 8 Mutas. He's got the double upgrade started. Wait, I'm assuming he's going to start the double upgrades. We'll see in a moment. But the Overseers will spot this. 9 Mutas in production. As many as possible. Gonna lose 1 Overseer. I wonder if he was gonna go for double Contaminate on the upgrades. The Queens! Ooh, but the Monarchy will be gunned down 1 by 1. 3 Queens dead. The Zerglings come out. Maru will pick up And eventually, will be forced back. A scan? Oh, but he missed the scan! Maru! Well, technically he'll see the... I don't know if he saw the end of it, but he actually missed the scan outright. He didn't scan the back of the mineral line. He's adding turrets now. He may have noticed, and the mutas just flew over the Hellion, so either way. Uh-oh. Ooh, one muta dead. Another one picked off. A third one badly bruised is Maru. The moment he spotted it, sent everything across the map, because he knows the best defense is indeed a good offense, and keeping those mutas back is 100% the most important thing right now. Even if it means it leaves himself a little open to counterattack, he needs to keep the pressure on Rogue. Rogue doing whatever he can to relieve it. The mutas will fly right by, but the Marines will spot him first. The fourth base is under fire, somewhat literally with the Hellbats mixed in. The Zerglings trying to cut off the reinforcements. Combat shield not done. The SCVs are pulled off the line. Reinforcements have to deal with this. A single missile turret will outflank the Mutalists. And now Rogue is in a whole heap and helping of trouble. His fourth base will be incinerated. This tank push doing more than enough. The fourth command center under attack. Might be able to delay it. Rogue not going to risk the mutas, but Maru already off to a strong start. And the fact he already has +2 weapons. He didn't start +2 armor alongside it. I think probably a little distracted. Maybe didn't have the resources. But with already 3 mutas cut down, and Maru with comparable supply and better upgrades, this is the biggest weakness of Beetling Bane. A heads-up fight. And if you don't have the army supply to give him the full runaround, then it gets harder and harder to engage directly. This is an interesting sort of actual perpendicular area. There's a set of rocks, but it's not a full-on wall-off. Not sure how much either of these players have played the map before. Probably discovering many of the features / bugs / features utilized by bugs. There's a Zerg joke. Please clap. Infantry weapons level 2 completed, but not enough Marines back at home to make use of it. The muta's going to cut off some more. Zerglings in the third base. The missile turret itself. And reinforcements out of the barracks will be cut down by the mutas one at a time, and starting to make a little bit more progress, but a Thor is finally here. Gets on top of the missile turret. And, well, it will hold. 10 SCVs dead. 81 to 65, but Maru's coming across the map. Baneling speed is done. Rogue has not started +2 anything, but the tanks are on the wrong side. They go onto the creep, and oh no! The cartography here working in Rogue's favor. 3 siege tanks taken down. Maru maybe the rocks actually were too, they choke it off so the tanks can't get through. That may very well be the case. And the tanks going down so easily and making it that much harder to actually defend against the Banelings is a huge deal here, and gives Rogue a much better chance of actually dealing with this army. It's entirely on the creep. The Banelings are rolling in. He's looking the other way. And the front line of Marines is incinerated. Another wave. Oh, a beautiful spread. I can't believe it's not butter. That was incredibly done. But he lost the critical mass of Marines he needs to keep the mutas at bay. And Rogue is collapsing on it. Spreads him out to try to deal with the Thor. It's going to get a few extra shots, juggling the Thor in a kind of an elephant pirouetting situation, but he will end up losing most of the medevacs, takes out the Thor. The Banshee's still actually going to work for some reason. A single medevac will survive. And Rogue, with the gift of those 3 siege tanks, will put himself in a much stronger position than he probably previously imagined. Has only lost 9 mutas, only 100 Zerglings, which is minuscule at this stage of the game. Maru still in a strong position defensively, but this army can... There's no faster army in the game. Mutaling Baneling. Its entire strength is its speed. That's why there's speed upgrades for the Lings, the Banes. Creep itself is a speed upgrade. The mutas obviously can fly. So Maru is kind of forced into a defensive position against an army that will crush him the moment he moves out. And the main weakness is the lack of late-game tech. The lack of a hive, the expense of the mutas, and the need for banelings. But Rogue has a hive on the way as Maru unhappily scans. Which means, yeah, Maru's adding more turrets because I think he wants to move out. And he's not going to be able to have the units at home to defend against the masses of mutas. So, battening down the hatches, setting up his defenses, and is going to try to make something happen. He doesn't have a Ghost Academy nor a Fusion Core on the way for that late game attack. He does have Drilling Claws nearly completed for the Widowmons. And +3 weapons is done. +3 armor about to finish. An Ultraless Cavern for Rogue alongside Adrenal Glands. He's got that Hive Tech on the way. But Maru is moving out onto the field. There's a whole lot of links. 35 Banelings. Widowmine doesn't quite find the connection. Rolling through, trying to maximize the Baneling HP, but only melts a few Marauders. Backing off before the Mutas can cut off any reinforcements. But Maru, it's 93 to 85 workers. Massive economies for both sides. Rogue with the advantage overall. Just a few Marauders moving forward, but a couple Thors to hold it down. +1 mech armor is done. +2 is on the way, making it that much harder for the Lings and Mutas to take it all down. Rogue has started his 3-3 upgrades, but they're still a long way off. Widowmine tries to drag it out, not finding success. A whole bunch of Banelings about to complete, but the Marauders are starting to chunk through it. Many of the Banelings will finish, but Maru just kind of isolates and kills the base. Another base under fire. A whole lot of Banelings rolling through. The Mutas on top of the Thor. Another Thor going to be targeted. The Marines filtered back, and there's not enough of them left over. There's only 4 Marines on the map. 12 in production. Rogue handled that perfectly. He only lost 2 Mutas. He destroyed 43 Marines and 2 Thors, making Mutas look almost viable. I don't... Sorry. I know. Give me edit that out. But true. I don't know. 6 Ultralists to fill in the gaps on the ground. Just as Maru is desperately rebuilding Marines, the Ultras can chew them up and spit them out. And by the time Maru remaxes, Rogue will be pretty much done with 3-3 upgrades. Rogue is very much in the driver's seat here, but this was the case last game as well, where Rogue had 7-8 bases to Maru's 4 or 5. But Maru just refuses to die. And so far, that has continued to be true well into game number 2. The map just split almost entirely in twain now. The creep spread kind of lackluster as many of the queens went down, and creep spread not as much of a focus when you're so, oh no, the bait! The Whittle Mines! Only one of them went off. He burrowed those a long while ago. If 2 Whittle Mines had gone off, these Mutas, well, many of them could be in the unit's loss tab right now, but the reinforcements cut off, and here we go. It's going to be a Muta base trade of sorts. Maru just blasts through the hatchery to the north. I don't know if he noticed that the drones burrowed. More Ultras on the way. Ultras at the front door. The SCV's in the midst of everything. Thor's pretty good against Ultras in relatively low numbers. Really high single target damage. But more Ultras. Maru is able to pick up and get out. He doesn't quite get the hatchery, though. Maybe can find his way to it. 47 SCVs dead. More Ultras. Most of these Marines are changelings. The Thor and finds an angle to target in the main base. The Ultra's completely out of position. A couple Whittle Mines wipe out 11 drones at the 9 o'clock. Meanwhile, Zerglings. Still more Whittle Mines will clean things up. And Rogue still maintains a supply lead. Just a few Mutas left over. A single Ultra underneath is eviscerating the reinforcements when he gets the hatchery. Those last 2 Mutas, 3 Mutas, doing what they can to harass the medevacs on the way out. Rogue, the burrow of the drones, saved a critical mass. And he still has 80 of them. But the Whittle Mines, oh, he doesn't retarget. Very thankfully, as if he was able to. Where are the Overseers? They're coming back. A retarget could have been absolutely devastating to Rogue's economy, but instead it's just a mild annoyance. He will eventually find these mines. Right? Right? Oh, no. Oh, no. Rogue, no! Oh, that's not good. Will they target the Banelings? No. 17 drones! Well, not all from that mine, I don't think, but the majority. Oh, but wait, there's more. Right. The mine hit again. 19 drones dead. The Whittle Mines have zero-handedly, as they don't have hands, they just have a beady eye, drawn the economy from a significant Rogue advantage to a marginal one at best. And only because he has access to more. Wait, is that even true? The Muta count has regrown. There's burrowed Zergling still spotting for the army, which is huge. He knows the map is dark and full of Terrans. And he's doing what he can to light it up. The creep has been pushed back, what little there was. And Rogue is... Wait, Maru has the supply lead. Oh, no! It's happening again! This planetary is very exposed. Exactly 16 SCVs. Should almost certainly be dead by the end of this. A couple survivors mainly. Maybe. Actually, surprisingly, about half of them get away. The Widow Mines, the breadcrumbs, still left behind. And Maru has managed... Well, he forced it into a base trade, and base trading at Terran is a losing proposition in most cases. Rogue thought he might be the exception, but he's proven the rule. An SCV leading the charge, eats a Baneling, kills a drone. Will go down, but that's a lot of Ultras. A whole lot of lists to back up the Lings here. And the Mutas will take it down. More Widow Mines kiting back. The Ultras softened up dramatically. He lost most of it. Well, this detection is not on station. Another group. There's enough to crush this, but another army to the eastern front will drag a lot of Rogue's units back. And partitioning your army on either side. Wow, they'll expect some of us in the wreckage from us. Leaves behind a majority of the bio while retreating with the rest. And Rogue, after 2 chaotic and hectic games, finally caves to the Infestors. 2 Infestors in production. And really just one. Just one. To unburrow and from the darkness bind them. That's all it takes to turn the tide. And the fact that Rogue has not used them until this point. Another command center. There's a gold base down the center. A beautiful map, by the way. But the Infestors, so instead of being the game changer here, are scouted immediately by the incidental scan. And a token fungal comes through, but still, that's a lot of Zerg. Oh, but the Widow Mines, he didn't have detection. Oh no, the Mutas, gotta be a little careful. And the Medivacs themselves can be targeted. A little bit of stutter flight is on the way. The Medivacs will retreat. Maru maintains the supply lead. In Rogue, it's a very tenuous situation. The Infestors are an existential threat, but they've been scouted. He's building more Mutas. He's lost. How many Mutas this game? Get your number locked in. Did you say 36? Because you'd be wrong. It was 30. But, still. Not nearly as many as he needs to in order for Maru to just blast his way through to an easy victory. It's a huge and potentially risky move, but Rogue has never been shy of those. There's burrowed units on both sides. He wandered the Infestor into the potential scan, like, literally the second it ran out. And now he's chasing the army past the missile turrets. Does he notice the worm sign? It's kind of obvious when you know what you're looking for, but the worm sign is there. The Mutas have 1-1. Oh, the splash damage hits absolutely everything. And somehow we've restabilized. What a game. The Ultras, but where is the Infestor? Is it just the one? He has 2. The other one... When the Ghosts lined up their shots in the first game, where were the Infestors? When the bio chunked apart another half dozen Ultras, where were the Infestors? When the Mutas felt alone on their own, where were... Oh, there they are. One Infestor catches a whole bunch of the Marines. No Widow Mines to help. And these ones splashing over the Terran army. A Thor is taken out incidentally. The rest of the army is forced to retreat. Infestors wandering into the scans. Another command center is taken out, but Rogue just gutted the reinforcements. Cut out a whole chunk of the army. And Maru is now isolated. His outlying bases do not have enough army to hold on their own. And the reinforcements are in a precarious position as well. Though the Infestors are a little out of it. He targets down the Ultras. This That fungal might be a little late. He picks up. Are there enough mutas? I think so. He may just have enough mutas to win the game. There's a Thor. He can juggle the Thor. Well, the Marines. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on under there. But the supply, I think, tells enough of a story. More mutas in production. He didn't lose that many in that fight. Rogue destroying more resources than a Terran in an endgame fight is quite defining. He does not. He has building armor, but no high-sec auto tracking. The missile turrets, well, they can take a lot with that building armor. Maru holding on, but where it looked like he may have rebuilt an advantage. Rogue has gone for the late game spellcasters. Maru has not. There's no ghosts. There's really not any liberators. The Widow Mines are being taken out. And with just a few infestors scattered throughout the field. As the King in the North, Cyril, has shown us. Sometimes it only takes one. And Maru's momentum has been completely shut down. And he's desperately hoping for another one of those game-changing fights. But Rogue does not see. He's running out of resources. He's running out of command. He only has 3 orbital commands. One of them's in the air with near full energy. That means the infestors are even more of a threat than they usually are. And Rogue, still, he plays this style. Doesn't matter what style, but this style, he's lost 7 hatcheries. He never really gets to the point he can remax out multiple times. But he's managed to keep it together. And the infestor's in position. He unburrows, it dies immediately, somewhat anticlimactically, but still, the Baneling count is so damn high. The Marines caught at the very back. Reinforcements are on the way. Another infestor in position. The Thor not quite taken out. A few of the barely surviving. Did he notice that burrow? Is that gonna work? Does it really matter in the end? Oh, the mules will drop. Pretty much all he has left. The Banelings! And +3 Banelings, 2-shot mules. I did not know that. The more you know. But Rogue still, he's building ultras. He still has 4 infestors. He keeps scattering them throughout. There's a gold base in the top right corner. Maru has been mining from the gold. The incomes have been desperately close. This infestor just hanging out. Does he see the worm sign? There are missile turrets kind of scattered around. Definitely has to be careful. Like, it's very hard to see the worm sign if it's directly underneath you. And they're not staggering their steps here. So it's pretty clear. Meanwhile, more Zerglings burrowed. Maru starting to get a little desperate as Rogue inches back towards maxing out. Oh, he wandered into the missile turret. Well, yeah, that'll happen. He's trying to force the issue. There's barely any reinforcements. Maru will have to come back to defend, and he'll go right through the infestor to do it. The bait is there. He knows. I think both sides are aware. Another Thor will be taken out. The scan spots the infestors, but he has to come back. He's just got to try to do it in an efficient fashion. Knocks out one. Widowmine, another fungal. They both have another fungal loaded up. Uses it. The ultras will be taken down. The fungals are zoning out while the mutas and zerglings are ripping through the production. And the zerglings unburrow at the 3 o'clock. And death by quite literally 1,000 cuts. Maru is bleeding out. He just can't pick a fight. Rogue is no longer offering him any sort of real engagement. And Thor, bit of magic boxing to spread out the mutas, using that stop position. 17 SCV is dead. In Maru, I don't think this ends with a bang, but a whimper of maybe 2 GGs. No, just 1 G twice. I don't need to explain it. You know what I'm talking about. Moving on. The Widowmine scattered throughout. The last gasp, but Rogue is still maxed out. There's still plenty of resources. The base trade happened before even like the 3rd and 4th bases were mined out. So there was plenty of time and resources to rebuild. If it happens again, there won't be, but again, Maru hits the northern base. He's down 40 army supply. The Widow Mines will be dragged into the Terran army. And the mutas, unnecessary, as Maru taps out. after 26 minutes of back and forth. How many Zerglings? 612? 84. 8 hatcheries dead, but Rogue, he finally built the Infestors, and against the Ghostless style especially, Maru unable to hold it together. We're all tied up. Just a slugfest between these two. Partially because of their styles, partially because of Rogue's just almost reckless disregard to conventional wisdom. But that forces evolution. It forces ingenuity. And sometimes it can force the victory. The Lisks, the Lings, and a few Infestors scattered in for extra flavor. Brings us to game 3, all tied up. The fact that Maru was able to drag it that close, it's quite difficult to pick your fights with Mutiling Bane. Even though you have the most mobile army, once you commit, sometimes you just gotta let it go and see what happens. The Mutas, once they finally participate in fights, are such a liability. But also your greatest strength. In Rogue, the call to remake Mutas after losing the majority was both incredibly bold and I think the right one. What is this? He's going not hatch first, but instead on a 3-player map where now it's not even guaranteed Maru will scout at all, but it's unlikely Maru will scout in a timely fashion. He's going pool first. Now, thankfully for Maru, Maru's not going command center first, which I think was very much on the table on a 3-player map, but we'll see. He's getting gas as well, which clearly means he has more than just slowlings to work with. Thankfully, for Rogue, for Maru, his SCV will be scouted in the correct direction. He's going to see the hatchery timing, and that is going to give away the pull first. Now, will the SCV continue? Well, the Lings will potentially kill it before he sees if there's gas. He sees the timing. He sees the Zerglings got to give the whole thing away. Now what? This doesn't have to be anything. But if you don't go hatch first, you are limiting your potential economy quite significantly. So the intent is to throw Maru off. But, of course, well, this is just runs right by with the Reaper. Might have been able to kill something, but I think realizing that he may need that Reaper at home. Zergling speed still pretty far off. It's going to be 2 Marines up against 4 Zerglings, which 4 Zerglings beat 2 Marines, especially if he doesn't have anything else to work with. He's going to have to ideally pull the SCVs, yeah. He's got a reactor on the way, so the SCVs must be pulled. Microing back, and great micro, but he lets the Zerglings in, which is going to be a continued issue, and now Rogue is getting a lair behind it. So the drama will continue. Again, Rogue with a... What? Just lets him... You can leave if you'd like. It's still here! By the way. Anyone? Is he just... Sets an SCV. Maru just... Can't really leave free-range Zerglings. Is he doing a queen drop? Is this a German taxi build? With just queens? This is a... Wow! This is quite a Zerg Rush. In the most pure sense. He's boxing out the Reaper. And Maru is not going to go for Hellions at all. Or he forgot he was going for Hellions at all. But there's the 3rd command center. The Reaper is playing very hard to get right now. He's going to see there's no 3rd base here, but that's not necessarily... Is he going to grab it? On the way up! That's huge. Now the Queen may have been able to shut it down. Oh, he's going Mass Dropper Lord? What? So Maru, notorious for his bare bones build, his builds, his limited defense, And Rogue, notorious for exploiting exactly that. It's not just the queens. Could you scooch? You know, I am exactly the same size as you, Brenda. Yes, but I have a condition. All right. I've got a fever. And the only cure is getting out of this overlord. I thought you were going to make a joke. You're the joke, Susan. You are. I know. That's just me. Don't make this about... Sorry, I blanked out for... There's a Viking, which pretty good at zoning out overlords, but not overlord drops in this magnitude. And the fact is that he's just... Does he just drop on the bunker? Why not? He's right on top of it. The SCVs are pulled, but we've arrived! The queens are pulled off. Even more Zerglings into the main. It's just Hellions, but there's some... He just wins! His game ends up more one-sided than a Mobius Strip. His Rogue just dunks the Zerglings and queens on his face, and he takes the lead. What? All right. So it just kind of ends. Maru only had Hellions and Marines. I mean, there's not much else to it. It worked perfectly. Rogue set the hook with the early Zerglings. Kind of lulled Maru into maybe not a false sense of security, but at least threw him off enough that he did not know exactly what he was dealing with. He had a bunker, but past that, no acknowledgement of the fact that Rogue could do anything, really. So, 2 games to 1. Maru, one of his biggest weaknesses is how predictable he can be. Not always, but it feels like he can easily be lulled into that false sense of security. Where, okay, I'll get my 3rd command center, I'll get my double engineering bay. Both Cyril and now Rogue have exploited this to quite dramatic effect and found victory with just pretty much an all-out slap him across the face sort of attack. An attack that almost wouldn't work unless Maru was doing some sort of starportless 3cc build. Mostly because if you're going for Hellion Banshee, you would scout it so much earlier, or do so much counter damage that it would severely undercut any efforts. So, but here we are. Rogue taking the lead over his rival. Rogue has always, well, some might argue Rogue, one of the players in contention for greatest of all time. But a lot of that is built off of his ability. He's a giant slayer when he's not the giant himself. Maybe both. He's a giant slayer. You don't have to not be a giant to be a giant slayer. Not important. What is important is consistently, sometimes more dangerous against top players than against anyone below that level. Against players like Clem and Cyril and Maru. Rogue always punching above his weight class, even nowadays, when he's not considered to be in contention for the very tippy top. I think Rogue ranked in the double digits nowadays. Maru, very much in the top 3 or 4. Really depends on whether Clem is tilted and playing Protoss this week or not. Honestly, that is the case. Clem is usually ranked 2, but Hero and Maru have surpassed him now because Clem played Protoss for like 2 weeks straight after Hero bullied him so hard. And now he's kind of, like, not just against Terran, but again. Speaking of bullying, the Reaper blocks the drone from getting into the extractor and then just puts it out of its misery quite quickly. Another drone. This one able to stretch into a spore crawler. Not comfortable, but effective. And oh no. 2 drones, which is too many. Churlish, insubordinate. Get off my Oh no, not 3. I just leave the game. Oh my. I would say, well, he gets a Marine on the other side. And did he get a scout of the 3rd command center? Indeed he did. So Maru, undeterred. Though this time, 1 isn't a hatch first, and 2, the Reaper killed 3 drones, which is just unacceptable. Part of the reason is because Rogue sent the Zerglings across the map to do this. So, there is that. The Hellion comes out, The SCV's a lot of mining time lost, which is a little relevant here. But there's still the third command center, significantly quicker than Rogue's third hatchery. So, well. Hellion just gonna scout for it. Now flips over. He did delay the Hellions by sending the Zerglings. The Queens just jammed in to block any more from moving up. He did kill the Reaper, which means there's no grenade to bounce him out of the way. A Banshee, as Maru acknowledges that doing the starportless, or he did go for a starport, had a Viking, which is the most useless possible unit against an early Overlord drop all in. I'd be like, well, he could take out the Overlord. Yeah, like sometime next week, taking out 3 Overlords with Queens dropping out of them. But as for combat potential, a medevac would still be more useful for healing. So, wow. Does he know? Did he see the creep tumor? Is he just, well, he either saw it go down or just hedged his bets and manages to take out a creep tumor with no detection. The Overlord. Okay. Sees the cloak. Not happy about it. Cloak Banshee will be the commitment, and Rogue can't take the chance that he's bluffing. Alright, you can't really call that bluff, because if it is Cloak, you just lose like 12 drones and probably the game. If it isn't Cloak, then you probably need a Spore at some point anyway, so you gotta get the Spore. That's the summary. Rogue might be a bit of a gambler sometimes, but that isn't a gamble, that's just reckless. Possibly suicidal. Just like when a bunch of Hellions run by, and you don't have Queens in position. Oh my. Oh, it's a disaster. Well, it's 3 drones so far and all the wings. It's gonna get worse. How much worse is the question. Oh my. Oh, 10. 15. Zerg players look... Well, it's too late now. It's 20 drones. Ah, oh, sweet Kerrigan. It's bad. So far, 23 drones dead this game. Potentially counting. Finds a queen. There's an overseer on the way, but now it's not just like Rogue can recover. He can rebuild those drones. He is. But that's larva he's using that should have been used for either more drones or Zerglings or anything else. So it doesn't just set back the economy now. It sets back the next few rounds of economy. Whereas Maru has suffered no such setback. A single Zergling comes across, but Maru's production rounds have been continuing, unchecked, which is kind of how Terran works. But if Zerg is set back by a full swath of drones, by a full third of his economy, maybe more being incinerated, well, it's going to leave him vulnerable somewhere. And the simple fact is Maru has 1-1 finishing about the time Rogue can potentially start his. The 4th base just started. The worker count is dead even. Does he have a Bane Nest? No. He's going Roach Ling, which does not scale amazing, but gets on the field. It's less larva intensive than Mass Zergling. That's the important point. And right now, Rogue is hurting. The supply doesn't reflect it. But again, that's the roaches in their natural element. Meanwhile, the queens. The hammer's gonna drop. That's the situation. Maru is going to have a 2-2 timing. And Rogue is gonna be the damsel on the tracks here. He's behind in upgrades. He's actually behind in workers. His army composition is mediocrity. There's no infestors on the way. A hive is a long way off, and Maru knows that. He spotted the hive building. More drones dead. The creep spread lackluster. What does he have? Charming good looks. Well, here come the Marines. It's 1-1 versus 0-0. The Queens have no energy. The Ravagers are not even finished morphing, nor does he have... He has enough to maybe take out the siege tanks if he gets close enough. There's a pretty big if. Just grinding his way through. Corrosive Biles scattered throughout. Manages to get another set. And Maru just tearing through absolutely everything. Maru ties it up. The equalizer, a decisive victory. Bringing us to once again reminding you. Make the difference. All right, have you been thinking about a lack of pride, a lack of accomplishment? Well, I mentioned Gamers for Giving 2026, and I'm mentioning it again. Repetition. It's very important in marketing, and it's important here. So, if you didn't hear, for some reason or another, Gamers for Giving 2026 this weekend, you can find more info in the pinned comment below, Jimmy. But making the lives of kids in hospitals just a little bit better. If you're a child, if you're in the hospital, 2 terrible afflictions. Well, we're hoping, obviously, they get better, but you can check it out. And if you don't happen to be a vampire, which is the timing I usually stream, vampire time, well, you can donate directly to Gamers Outreach, the registered charity in the U.S. and several other countries, many, I think, at this point. And Jim, it's just so loud, I can't just be louder. Okay, anyways, you can make not only my day, your day, but a whole lot of kids' days a little bit better with Gamers Outreach and Gamers for Giving 2026. So thank you, good luck, and good night. Sorry. Advertising has gotten a little crazy nowadays, but... And we're going to have incentives and everything. Should I shave it? We'll see. You know, doing things to my face is certainly the greatest... We're not going to go down that. We're going to stay on this one and talk about Maru striking back. Well, that... Every Zerg has played that game before. Every Terran as well, though they won't admit it, but the game where literally everything goes wrong and it just keeps going wrong. A series of unfortunate and painful events. The Reaper gets 3 drone kills. The Hellions just get in because you're looking the other way and kill another 20. The Banshees show up. You already know, like, it's a situation where you're already drowning, but you can tread water a little while longer. But then the Terran Coast Guard comes in with their automatic rifles, and, well, it does not go well for this. You can survive for a while yet. Like, losing drones does not mean you've lost the game, but the follow-up was pretty cut and dry. And now the series is once again anyone's game. All right, Maru. You really should lose 3 drones. 3 drones is way too many. 1, especially when you've gone out for a 3rd and they catch it. Okay. A 2nd, that's pushing it. But Rogue gambled by sending out his early lings, and that's what cost him the drones the last time around. This time, notably, no lings sent across the map. He's already maybe not given up on that idea, but just making the conscious decision that it's not maybe great for his long-term survivability. Anyways, 3rd command center for Maru. This time around, Rogue did manage to get his 3rd hatch more quickly. It's kind of important for Zerg. Queen popped out of the way. Creep tumor in the other corner. Circling speed on a standard timing. Maru will get in. He'll see no more gas mining. I think soon enough he'll see the link speed. In fact, he's kind of overstaying his welcome. But Rogue is so... Want to say it, Susan? Get off my creep! Nice jobs. Thank you. Want to expand on... No! Okay. All right. Sorry. A Liberator. Maru determined to make a unique choice with his starport every single game. And for the first time, we're going to see the Liberator first. Which, I'm not sure if there's anywhere on this map the Liberator can be extra infuriating. But Maru is quite acutely aware of all the best angles to make use of it. Roach 1's halfway there. And Roach is... Rogue is banking up a lot of minerals. He's only got 10 drones at the natural. He's mining... This is a Ravager all in. And Maru did not go for a Banshee. The Overlord, it seems, or a Zergling at least, scouted there was no tech lab on the starport. I don't know how much of this is really related to that directly. But it's a Roach all in by Rogue. He's going to try to just win right here and right now. At least do critical damage. Hopefully, at least as much as Maru was able to do with just a few Hellions last game. The Liberator is driven back and will demonstrate it does indeed have an anti-air attack. And the Zerglings get into the natural. And this is certainly not ideal. The Hellions will have to run all the way back home, which makes it that much easier. The Queens, unclear whether they're intentionally moving off creep or not, but dragging the Zerglings back at this key timing is absolutely critical and will significantly increase the potential damage, as having even less warning. There's not going to be any bunkers, no siege tanks. He starts a Marauder. It's just 4 Roaches and some Lings for now. But that isn't the end. It's just the beginning. The Liberator will siege up, but there's enough Ravagers to knock it down. In the moment, and he's got to re-siege it immediately. He manages to get it out of the way at the last second. But that's so many Ravagers. And there's a handful of Marines and Marauders, a few Zerglings. I mean, a few Hellions mixed in, but he knocks down. The Overlord's here to get its revenge. The angle on that Liberator is very good. Makes it incredibly hard for the Ravagers to actually do anything. Stim is done. 1-1. Well, the engineering bays will be torn down. In a relatively safe spot if something that wasn't exactly this is happening. But he whips out the corrosive biles, and the Liberator will be knocked down. And there's just nothing. Maru once again skipping the common wisdom of Terran versus Zerg. And once again, Rogue will punish him for his hubris. There's not enough units. He cannot get out. They are coming. The Ravagers might be targeted down. The Zerglings may be thinned out, but the damage is already done. Rogue is sending more. Everything has been cleared out outside of the main, and the main base itself still vulnerable. More SCVs. The medevacs are out of energy. 25 SCVs dead. The command centers, both retreating. He's retreating from the 3rd to the natural, but he took out, if he finished 1-1, if it was in the main base instead of the natural, if he had those upgrades, then maybe. But this time around, Rogue is the one who's done critical economic damage. This time around, Rogue is the one with the overwhelming advantage. And this time around, I think Rogue is the one who's going to be going to match point. It would take a Major League Baseball speed throw here in order to see Maru escaping this one. The master of survival. But usually, the scenarios in which he has to claw his way back, both players have a much higher economy. But Rogue chose a simple yet effective battering ram sort of build. And Maru, without a Banshee, without siege tanks, he didn't have the early scouting nor the defense, and his greed will cost him. But taking out, at least forcing the cancel, he's juggling to deal with this. There's no combat shield again. And no upgrades means that the Zerglings are still quite a threat, but Maru trying to get whatever he can. And he desperately needs more. There's Roach speed on the way. Rogue has gone up to 65 drones, which is arguably too many, but I mean, who's going to back up that argument? Hey, boys, in the 5x5, am I right? Yeah. Let's hit. Yikes. Combat shield now completed. Rogue still trying to take the 4th base. Maru's still going to have 1-1 quicker than Rogue, but it's about 30 seconds behind. And that just made this army significantly more dangerous. Almost loses the medevac, slurps up the rest, assassinates 2 queens quite gruesomely. Well, Rogue at 150 supply. And there's a changeling making sure it's not enough here. Maru he started 2-2 almost immediately. But the upgrades are even. The army supply is more than double in favor of Rogue. He's got the Ravagers to help break through. He's actually recovered a significant amount of the SCV count. But here comes Rogue. Gonna look to punch through yet again. Corrosive Bile knocks out 1 siege tank. Another one. It's not remotely close to enough. Not even in the same zip or postal code as enough. Trying to be inclusive here. And with that, the Roaches and Raptors just bash right through and claim the victory he earned several minutes ago. Rogue, 1 game away. Maru he refuses to abide by almost they're not requirements, but they're strong suggestions. There's a reason that Hellion Banshee has been a staple of Terran versus Zerg for over half of Maru's life. He's the one who came up with it. He's at least one of the main reasons it's a staple today. But now, for at least 2 of his losses, the hubris to skip that phase of the game has come and directly punched him in the face. Or at least drooled all over with corrosive bile. Yeah. But Rogue, ever his nemesis. I feel like, despite Maru's statistically much higher ranking... What is this? That's a 14 hatch. An Overlord into 15 pool? This is something. This is... Obviously, but this is... Huh. Rogue with another bespoke opener here. Finding ways to get aggressive against Terran. But again, because Maru is leaving himself open to them, I have to consider it a bit of a strategic, at this point, blunder. I'll go so far and use such strong language. Not enough to get me demonetized, but let's pick a 4-letter word. What the flux, Maru? Spawning pool and a later gas. Meanwhile, Maru with 1 Rax expand. Not super greedy, definitely not aggressive. On Throne of the Dunes. Another one of our more unique maps from the community map pool. But this one, I almost guarantee the players have been playing on. Several tournaments have used it for at least part of the last months, last couple seasons. Definitely has a unique look. Very sandy. You can see it pretty much everywhere. Has a tendency to get there. Reaper. The Zergling's already out, significantly quicker. Let's see if Maru registers that. As this time around, about as quick as you could get the hatchery, and a very quick spawning pool behind it. I'm going to try to snipe off the Reaper if it comes in. No 3rd hatch. 3rd command center for Maru, because, well, you know. Of course. And, oh, you can jump anywhere. Rogue, I think, reasonably thought that the area that clearly had some sort of broken railing would be the area you could jump in. But apparently you could just jump on any part of it. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but, you know, the Monster Energy broken down railing there. Because it was part of the Team Liquid map contest, which Monster is a sponsor of, by the way. In case you're wondering why, showing up and maybe something that doesn't quite look as designed for it. You never know. You know, the Reaper will get a full scout. The lair starts at the Natchery, desperately trying to hide something from Maru here, and we'll see if he succeeds. And he spots it. The Queens will take it out, but he saw the lair started. Maru skipping. He doesn't even have a starport. He's getting the double engineering bay. This time around, well, that's all I have to say about that. Like, he's going to get away with it. There's not going to be an early roach all-in or a baneling bust, which is almost vanishingly rare. But Mutas? The simplest but potentially most effective choice. Rogue making great use of them. In game, I want to say 2. Hydras. Possibly borrowing Cyril's Hydra Rush style. And that's something... Have we even seen Hydras today? Were there Hydras in game 1? Am I crazy? Did he go this far without building any Hydras? Which means they probably won't be factoring in. This is almost... Not exactly, but very clearly inspired by Cyril's relatively new Hydra Rush style. Where he just completely obliterated Clem, who was going for a very similar build to what Maru's doing right now. The double upgrade, like, longer-term Terran. And the Hellion just gets surrounded. Will Maru skip? That gas may make Maru think of Mutas. We'll see if he builds missile turrets. Just blindly or not. But, oh, the scan. Okay, he'll spot the Hydra Den. He does get a scan out. Concerned enough about this. There is no Baneling Nest, as all the gas is being sunk into Hydra and Hydra accessories, of which you need 2 upgrades just to make the Hydras full functionality. And then, obviously, anything for the upgrades themselves. And the Hydras aren't cheap either. Gonna be dozens just to start. 59 drones, not a booming economy, but enough to perpetuate this sort of attack. Very interested to see how it works out. Combat shield is a long way off, and I think that's very relevant. Even, yeah, Rogue almost lifting this directly from Cyril's Book of Tricks. Now, unfortunately, the Overseer is taken out. He had enough energy for Contaminate, which would be great to have on upgrades or potentially on the either factory or starport. But the Overseer is taken out. Rogue is actually a little supply blocked, but I think he's about to fix that. Not just with the Overlords in production, but instead. I think Maru's had some time to kind of evaluate how to deal with this exact strategy. He's willing to abandon the 3rd in order to get a better position to fight the Hydras. So Rogue backs off. He'll take a 4th hatch. He'll add more drones. And we'll see where he goes from here. No Lurker Den. Infestors. The Hydra's just fighting on the field. And no Combat Shield Marines, I think, means the Hydras win. Though, you don't want it to cost too much. He didn't get... Oh, he did get Hydra range. These are fully loaded Hydras now. I mean, besides their lunge ability, but that's a pretty long way off. He's just going... So instead of avoiding Infestors, like the glaringly missing Plague ability, instead, they're part of the core army composition. And just one fungal. Yes? What? You said fungal? Brenda, stop. I don't... But just one fungal could end the game for Maru. He's on a tenuous amount of momentum right now. He shut down the first Hydra attack before it started. But if he loses these medevacs and Marines, then even if Rogue isn't going to attack him right now, he's got a Lurker Den and a Hive on the way. And without map control, the Lurker's so dangerous on offense. He's going to have very limited scans. Doesn't have that many siege tanks. Adding Liberators in. Rogue is 77 drones, which is quite comfortable, especially now that he already has 25 Hydras. Usually the big issue is getting to that count in the first place. That's a huge expense. But they're already here. Sharking around, slithering around menacingly. Maru's gonna move out, clearly anticipating. I don't know if he scanned the hive or he's just expecting it based on the fact there isn't a direct attack right now. The siege tank's in a very awkward position. The Infestors dangerously close. 2-2 is about to complete for the bio. A scan on the Infestors. Rogue isn't too far off, but he started on the hive tech upgrades. Lurker's in a very forward spot. Though it looks like Maru gonna take a possibly safer angle to the south. 4 lurkers on the way. There's only 3 tanks with this. The rest is just Marines and medevacs. So, but the Infestor's on the high ground. There's a chance he could find an angle there. The lurkers will scamper down, and Maru's gonna spot him. Lurker range isn't done, which means the siege tanks outrange them dramatically. Fungal. The Hydras are in range, and the Fungals are just huge, and he severely underestimated their power. The Hydras easily chew through all of the Marines, several of the medevacs, and Maru is completely wiped out of the field. A drop on the eastern side will take out the base to the 9 o'clock. But that is barely a consolation prize. Maru loses 38 Marines. He loses 3 siege tanks, 3 medevacs. He only kills 8 Hydras and a few dozen Zerglings. A resounding and decisive victory on the field for Rogue. And now Lunge is done, and he chases down even more Marines. Those are changelings coming in, acting like a run-by, but 33 Hydralisks against 36 Marines. There's only 3 tanks. He desperately needs more tanks and or Liberators. That is the counter. Well, the best case scenario, as he doesn't have the economy to switch into the Ghosts. 8 more lurkers. Just barely out of range of the sensor tower. Very intentionally so. And Rogue is knocking on the door. Oh, they lurk, then they just run through, so maybe not as dramatic. But the changelings, in the midst of everything here, he's going to try to force the issue, but here comes Rogue. Lurkers on every side. The Infestors behind. The Hydra is a threat in and of themselves. The siege tank's doing a lot of damage, possibly cutting into the critical mass. The ranged lurkers are zoning out a lot of the bio, and the Liberators are going to help. But lurkers to the north will shark around. There's only 1 siege tank left. Without Liberators to help out, the lurkers just arcing out around the concave of spines is... I might be able to take out one. He splits, he stims, and the bio is more than enough for now, but doesn't want to go between a rock and a hard place. The lurkers are slicing around. Maru still on the ropes, and it's fraying quickly. 3-3 is about to complete. His best chance to break out. He has but seconds to do so, and Maru is not even going to try to break out. He's going to circumvent the problem entirely. The siege tanks and Liberators trying to hold the planetary being repaired somewhat, but more Hydras on the way. And he just dives on all of this. The planetary already bruised, retreats with the SCVs. It will be taken out. The base trade attempt, there's already... The defenses will already be operational by the time the bio arrives. He lunges forward, but there's some Infestors back at home. The Lurker's still moving forward. Maru losing ground on both fronts. And there's no hope in the production tab right now. There's no more siege tanks, just a bunch of Marauders. He might be able... No. Cut down before he can get close. The Lurkers continue to close in. The Executioner. And Maru's head is on the block. Another Fungal. The Hydra's helping to hold the line. The Lurkers breaking through. Fungals adding to the damage. The Infestors. Few and far between, but enough. Maru holds. But we gotta ask ourselves that question. Have you liked and subscribed? And at what cost? Another Fungal. Another group of Marauders. And Maru just stringing it along. More siege tanks. But the Hydras and Lings, 89. There's still 81 SCVs. Not nearly, there's no way that's efficient, but the siege tanks will be taken out. Maru thinned out, and the flood of Hydras and Lings overtaking him. Just goes up, takes out another tank. The Marauder's not very effective against the Hydras at all. There's just too many of them. Maru, there might be only one way out of this. And it's not one that allows another game. The Hydra's trickling through. The Marines and Marauders stimming to the front. and being put down in turn. GG. Yet again. The greatest nemesis of Maru throughout his entire career. Putting him down in some of the most high-profile tournaments, and indeed, probably the highest-profile tournament Maru's been in this year. The Revival Star League, put on by Tasteless and Company in Korea. The closest we have to GSL. GSL has kind of shifted to something, more Team League format, but Rogue with a decisive and clear victory, strategically and tactically and emotionally. 4 games to 2. So, congratulations. Thank you for watching. If you haven't yet checked out Gamers for Giving 2026, it'd be awesome if you could do so. If you're watching this months down the line, look forward to the next one. And you can still donate to Gamers Outreach, I believe. But otherwise, means of motivation, Patreon, I guess, as well. But thank you for watching. And, of course, liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. So, I hope I made your day just a little bit better. Good luck. Have fun. Hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching. Congratulations to Rogue. Stay chill.